Um, we're going to move on now to more practical discussions, our trade show roundtable. Yeah, what does it look like in 2021? In a world of unknowns, all we can do is work hard to keep our community together and to speculate. And so Robert Lauder and Marc-Andre Esculier and I are going to have a chat about that. Robert Lauder is president and show manager of the Spry Lifestyle and IBD show, excuse me, trade shows serving the manufacturers, distributors, and sales agents, as well as independent retailers of sporting goods, outdoor and active lifestyle brands marketing in Canada. Visitors to his shows comprise the channel universe of independent specialty retailers from all corners of Ontario and Atlantic Canada. Marc-Andre Esculier, 16 years ago, founded an open shoe and accessory show for the province of Quebec, a show which he still organizes today under the name of Showcase in Drummondville, nearly midway between Montreal and Quebec City. He has over 40 years of shoe and accessory sales experience covering Manitoba and Northern Ontario for 3 years, and then continued his career in Quebec at the major independent retailer level. So his show is extremely well supported by exhibitors as well as retailers, primarily in Quebec. So thank you, Robert and Marc-Andre, for joining me. And I hope you guys are well. We can, thank you, Mel. Hi. Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. Hey, Marc-Andre.
So let's just start with what we've learned. If we could tell our pre-COVID trade show organizer self 3 things, what would they be? Robert, you want to start?
Learned since pre-COVID, you mean? Is that
since the shutdown? What have you learned?
Well, without getting too political at this early point in the session, and without sounding too cynical, I would say probably whose pocket are they in is the question I ask myself every time I go somewhere or question a news report. I think for me the warning I would give myself is, be careful what you hear, be careful what someone is trying to convey to you, because there are an awful lot of hidden agendas along the way. And so I would say, just have an open mind and
roll with it.
Yeah, be aware. Yeah, learn, educate yourself.
Yeah, Marc.
Hi. Good morning, or good afternoon, I should say.
Good afternoon.
In my case, I only came up with one thought, and had I known what was going to happen for the following year to our shows, I would have taken measures to investigate the type of representation that trade fairs or buying markets have with the governments. We don't have the kind of representation that we should have. And we're basically a type of business who's somewhat ignored by the government guidelines, but ignored is a big word because there's no representation to make them understand what it is that we are and what we represent and the needs of the participants, either exhibitors, suppliers, or retailers. So I think there's a big lack there, and that led me to discover that. We have association in Quebec, which is a convention association, but they're basically oriented with the banquets and theaters, but they're not into trade fairs, buying markets, and we're sadly represented in that aspect. And therefore, guidelines are not, more often than not, are not addressed to our needs.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit because I do sit on the board of CAM, so that's the Canadian Association of Exposition Management. And we were never an advocacy association until now, until this happened. And what we learned, and I don't want to harp on for this too long because we want to talk about our industry specifically, but what we learned and what our association has been fighting against, we have a task force, is that we were lumped under tourism. Events, large events, were lumped under the big tourism umbrella. And that's what the association has been trying to get out from under. And the events industry is decimated. Banquet halls and the like, but big venues and show suppliers and us, it's been absolutely decimated. But there hasn't been a voice because it's been lumped under tourism. And we're working to change that on the association side. So, but I just wanted to put that out there so you guys understand that that has been a problem for us. They don't understand what we do.
Exactly, because
that's trade show side. Consumer side is a little bit different.
We're in the same basket as car shows and
Yes.
the shows that attract 10,000 people and and wide open with no registration or nothing. So yeah, we're not covered.
It's under the tourism thing. That's what we're trying to fight against. So the three things that I learned was that, number one, we're a community. We're a big community. We trade show organizers are not competitors. We're a community, and our communities, our buyers and sellers, need us. And I've learned that. I've also learned not to take anything for granted anymore. Like that was a huge learn for all of us. And I learned that how adaptable that I always knew I was adaptable, but I didn't realize I was this adaptable. So anyways, those are my three things. How have you guys been keeping your exhibitors / members engaged during the past 8 months? Robert?
Well, early on, we initiated some research questionnaires because obviously we wanted to understand better the mindset that people had, because that was really important to understand in order to make decisions about, or even understand what control you had over decisions that you could even try and make. And so and I think that it was enlightening, it was informative, and it was, I think, almost a reality pill that we were in for a long haul. But certainly research, newsletters, some social media, and then just one-on-one phone conversations to understand where people's heads were at.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Just
a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and just showing up for them. Yeah. How about you, Mark? What have you been doing?
It's very much in the same direction. I've had various conversations with various companies. I've also issued quite a few emails speaking about or trying to evaluate the will to bring back the shows and the support that might be out there, and the need for those shows to evaluate how much everybody needs this type of show. And this is basically all the communications that I've been doing to see what would be the next step necessary to bring back the shows, regardless of the COVID-19. I mean, I've been trying to put out there that we need to express our support as a community and be ready for when we're able to do the shows, and not wait till we're ready to do the shows, till we're able to do the shows, and then not be prepared. So preparation for me, whether like in my case, I have a February, my next show is in February, and the following one is in August. Well, preparation for me is let's see what kind of support we can have for the show in February. And if that doesn't work, then at least we'll have a momentum and a base to a foundation to address the August issue. So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've been doing what we can, right? At AFA, we really focused on expanding our membership and working on virtual opportunities. We created a Retail Next webinar series, just, and offering lunch and learns, really taking the focus off of the buyer seller and focusing it on education, because that we knew we could do virtually. Easier than a virtual trade show. And I spent an enormous amount of time sitting through demos and virtual seminars, webinars on various platforms. I sat through countless platforms to use for virtual trade shows. It's very interesting indeed. So do you know how your exhibitors, Robert, navigated the spring 2021 selling season? Do you know how they went about it?
Well, we didn't conduct specific research on it, so my response is somewhat anecdotal, but at the same time, I think generally speaking, it was a challenge. It was helped by a simplification, a very quick modification of a lot of spring collections. A lot of repeats were relied on, and some of the new product was dropped from even being offered at that early stage in bookings and so on, because we were all in the same boat. We had no idea where things were going. Yeah. I mean, we knew we were going to have a season, but at the same time, we didn't know what it was going to look like. So I think, generally speaking, I think it was very challenging. I think there was a lot of frustration. Retailers were faced with making commitments that, I mean, who knew? Who knew what was going to happen? So, and then what not only was it challenging to ascertain what kind of business season it was going to be, but you were faced with the reality that, for the sake of argument, you could not get in front of your suppliers to physically touch the product, look at it, see the colors, appreciate the textiles, the fabrics, and so on. So you're being asked to make buying decisions for your business 12 months in advance of the season that you're buying for. That's a challenge in itself. Making those decisions with all of those negative factors affecting how you normally do your business is, a whole different ballgame. So, I think the reality is everybody just gravitated to, what do we need to do? Yeah. And we're just trying to figure it out. And I think it was a massive challenge. Fortunately, again, the general feedback I got was that, the spring summer season is a relatively simpler season to sell. It's not as complex as the winter season. From a collection standpoint, from a SKU count standpoint, from a logistics of sampling standpoint, and so on. So fortunately, if there is a silver lining, it was the right season to have to face the challenges that everybody was facing. Yes. But nonetheless, I think it was incredibly challenging, and the result was a massive level of disorganization of the normal process that a retailer would go through with their respective vendors in getting that booking done. So very disruptive, and certainly I think that there's a huge silver lining with COVID, but we can talk about that later, because I know you've got an agenda questions
Yeah.
and so on. But I'm totally convinced that there's a huge silver lining to COVID. We've got a rough road ahead in the short term, but I think the long term is looking very, very, very positive already for me. Anyway.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I feel there's some positive outcomes too. It's change. It was disruptive. And from my knowledge, because I'm not on that end of the business, I'm not selling to retailers. Our exhibitors, members, they scrambled. They used FaceTime. They used Zoom. They got on the road again. They had caravans. They did whatever they could to sell in spring 2021. And it was nuts and exhausting. And I'm sure they're all burnt out, and I feel bad for them all. Mark, how about you? Was there anything different that, how your exhibitors navigated the season?
I got feedback from exhibitors as well as retailers. From the exhibitor point of view, yes, the industry was totally divided. Some went with internet presentations. Larger companies with offices managed to bring a lot of customers to the office. Some went to caravans. Some went physically traveling on the road. And from a retailer standpoint, the feedback that I got is internet presentations, of course, do not permit them to fully appreciate a collection, and is very lengthy, and many found it very, too lengthy because, when they come to a show, they depending on the level of importance of a supplier, they might spend an hour, maybe even 2 hours in the booth. And some other suppliers will spend 15, 20 minutes just to buy 2 or 3 shoes they normally buy every season. Mm-hmm. And with internet presentations, basically they go through at least an hour with everybody, even though the need wasn't always necessary. So it was very, very confusing and very, it really, really got everybody scrambling all over the place.
As Robert said, it was disruptive. What about offering any virtual buying and selling opportunities? Like Robert, did you do that? Did you have a virtual trade show?
Yes, we essentially built an area on the website, which we attempted to sort of replicate the population of brands that you would normally find at our shows. So, and then we simply provided both a means of interacting with those brands, as well as in some cases, and in many cases, we added layers of content to the brands that were represented in the virtual trade show that would provide a level of convenience to the buyers, to allow them to do some research to get a perspective on what the brand is doing. The feedback we got was it was very helpful, and it was very complimentary to a lot of the other things that people were trying. And again, I mean, we just didn't know where everything was going. So it was a case of what can we do, and how can we help everyone else is scrambling to figure things out in the short term. So
yeah. How about you, Marc-Andre? Did you offer any buying and selling opportunities during that? We did.
I did not. Simply because, in my view, there's just too much research to do to really come up with a real plausible solution. But what I'm looking into is modifying or adding a feature on my website that will allow exhibitors to post their catalogs that a retailer can peruse himself and look at the products from various retailers and make up his own mind as to who he wants to contact, and raise his curiosity as to certain novelties and new products. So that's what I'm looking into right now to add to the website.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of platforms out there. There are a lot, and it's just tricky to know really which ones. We cannot replicate what we do on. So we just can't. And what are you guys hearing feedback from exhibitors regarding their appetite for? We don't know. Before I even ask the question, we don't know what's going to happen in the first quarter. We don't know what's going to happen in the first half of 2021. But what are you guys hearing your exhibitors' appetite for January, February, March show? If, big if, we could have physical shows. What are you hearing anything from your exhibitors on an appetite to even have that? Robert?
Well, quite simply, I would say that we opened up for exhibitor registrations for our show in January, the Winter Market, and because I thought the best way to test the market, and of course, you'll appreciate this. You have a chicken and the egg situation. You have to go through the motions of presenting a gallery of the brands that are interested in participating in a show, so that you can create interest from the buyers. The buyer's perspective is, well, I'm not going to consider doing anything until I know what I'm going to experience. So we have a chicken and the egg situation. So we just went through the motions of inviting registrations for our winter market. I would say that we're currently probably at 50% of where we would normally be as a final result. So the positive perspective that I would convey is that approximately half of our usual clientele has indicated that yes, if there was going to be a show, I would be a part of it, and that's important to establish, because now we have a position of strength from a messaging standpoint that says, look, if you're interested in coming, this is who you would be able to see if you came.
Yes.
That being said, and again, without getting too political, I mean, I think going back to our original conversation, COVID has exacerbated, I think, an awareness of what's going on in the political arena and so on, and big media too. I mean, I'm very, very disappointed, frankly, in the role that the media is playing in conveying and disseminating information about COVID. But let's just put that aside for the purposes of this conversation. But what we're up against, frankly, is that there is in my opinion, a far too greater sense of fear of what might happen if I expose myself to other people, let alone if I expose myself to COVID. Because if you start looking at the stats, if you really dig down way beyond the perspective that the media presents you and our elected officials present you, you get a very, very different perspective. And unfortunately for us as trade show organizers, we are at the mercy of a perception that has been firmly entrenched in the average person's mind that is ill-perceived, in my opinion, ill-perceived and very detrimental to both our industry specifically, our category specifically, but frankly, society at large. Yeah. And it's incredibly frustrating for me personally. It's incredibly frustrating, I think, for an awful lot of other people who I talk to regularly about this. And I think we as a public are being misled. We're being misrepresented, and we're being duped about what's going on. And unfortunately, until we can change the perception of, and I can't blame people because we're all busy. We're all focused on running our lives. We rely on our elected officials. We rely on the media to present a fair and balanced perspective on what's going on.
Yeah.
And until we get a fair and balanced perspective, we are at the mercy of those misperceptions. It's just that's just the reality of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But so let me just ask Mark the same question. What are you hearing? Do you know if your exhibitors have an appetite for a live show? Could we have one in the first half of 2021?
The feedback that I'm getting, first of all, that I've been getting is there's a definite interest into bringing back the show. Everybody realizes that all these other options they've been using are not all the best options, and the best option are the shows. I've launched my registration for the February show 3 weeks ago. I'm at about 60% right now of registration received. The response has been extremely good. And of course, like Robert said, that has to be the first step before you approach the retailer with the prospect of coming back to attend the shows, because they need to know who's going to be there before they make up their minds. And it has to be worthwhile for them to come. There is a percentage of fear out there, especially on the retailer side. I find more on the retailer side than on the exhibitor side. And the percentage of fear, I try to deal with that in communications, pointing out that retailers, in more ways than one, are frontline workers who deal with COVID-19 exposure almost on a daily basis. And they've learned to deal with it. And, and then, of course, putting together a package to show everybody, exhibitors as well as retailers, that all the government guidelines for a safe show are not only met, but will even be exceeded in some cases, in some aspects. And and of course, we'll talk about that probably later, but there are measures that will make it possible to have a safe show. And so, yeah, basically the chicken and the egg, we need the exhibitors first to come on board. And the response has been extremely good this early in the process, because I normally give till December 1st for registration. So it's been extremely good. And yeah, the next step will be approaching the retailers. I intend to publish starting today or tomorrow a list of the exhibitors to the retailers as it grows during the process, and get the feedback from that standpoint. So it's very positive so far.
Good. So before I get to another question that I just thought of about what if you can't have your show, what are you doing for safety protocol compliance? What measures are you putting in place for safety protocols? Like, and your venues, like, are your venues helping you out? Because that's another big piece of this puzzle, is our suppliers, our venues and our show suppliers also have to have safety measures in place. Regardless of the politics, Robert, we have to have all of these things in place to comply, to show it. Even in an advocacy perspective, from my perspective, is to show the government what we are doing to comply so that we can have our trade shows. So what are you guys doing?
Before I answer that question, because that question is actually very simply answered in my opinion. But before I answer that question, let me just, if I might just quickly go back to that last section, because the reality of it is, and I'll speak on our behalf, but I think I can speak on your behalf, and I think I can speak on Mark Under's behalf as well. That the reality is that the environment that we would be faced with at any one of our respective show days is there's probably less people in the building than there is in the average Costco on any given day of the week. That's the reality. So you can have any perception you want about how risky it might be to your health about attending a trade show, but the reality is, the absolute reality is that there will be less people in the building at our trade show on any given day than there would be in Costco on any day of the week that you would go to Costco or Home Depot or anywhere else.
That's what the advocacy is about with CAM in terms of trade shows. You will never get more a compliant group of show organizers than trade show organizers to make sure everything is exactly as it should be, and managing the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, so to answer your question, we of course will intend to provide the environment that the government lays out in its health and safety protocols, recommendations. We've had long enough to understand the risk. We've had long enough to establish a set of protocol that not only is effective, it's probably way too effective. But anyway, the point is that I think it would be frankly irresponsible of us to create our own set of protocols. There are established protocols out there. We will follow them. That's what people understand is the right practice, and that's what that's the environment that we will deliver. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And what about your venue? Has your venue, have your venues been working with you on this issue? Not only from safety protocols, but from not being able to have our shows in the summer. Have your venues been?
I don't have any greater expectation of them than what is expected of them any day of the week. There are protocols in place. They understand what those protocols are, and they have committed to delivering that level of health and safety. I don't know what else to ask them to do beyond what they understand they are expected to do by, you know, the local health authority. So, you know, I think again we're well enough into this now that we all understand what we need to do to protect ourselves and to protect our colleagues and our peers in our respective industries. We're all intelligent people. We're all respectful people, and I think we can provide a very responsible environment with which to facilitate business.
We can, but we just have to show the government that we can. That's the concern. That's why CAM we have this task force, because we are lumped into one and we have to show the government that we will comply. Mark, how about you? Like, what's happening in Quebec with your show and your venue, and what are you putting out there for safety compliance to the government, to your exhibitors, to your attendees?
First of all, of course, I have had discussions with the Expo Center and made some requests. Yes, they do have guidelines to obey, you know, like they have to disinfect bathrooms and any commonly touched areas every 2 hours. They offered to put arrows in the aisles of the show with distancing signs. They've offered to even have a questionnaire when people arrive, a short questionnaire, you know, if they were sick or whatever, you know, the usual questionnaire. I've asked them to implement for the food court a special phone number where exhibitors could phone the snack bar and order their meal, given a menu in the morning and for lunch, order their meal for lunch and be delivered to their booth to eliminate as much as possible any lineups. They've agreed. They like the idea. They're going to implement it with other shows as well.
That's great.
Yeah. Again, addressing lineups, I've decided to email entry passes to everybody, exhibitors and retailers. I got an adjusted registration form for retailers where they have to indicate what days they're going to attend, you know, so that we can have a control of who was there when.
That's great.
And I'm even looking into a conformity form to sign upon registration both exhibitors and retailers, where they will agree to abide by the guidelines, by the sanitary guidelines available. I've also got 2 exhibitors sponsoring. One is Pajar, I'll say the name if I'm allowed, is sponsoring all the face masks. Okay, thank you, Pajar. and I got Montreal Mercantile was offered to sponsor all the disinfecting products for their hands, and they'll be available throughout the whole show. So yeah, a lot of things are being changed because of that. But yeah, I'm addressing both the added features to the show over and above the guidelines that everybody has to follow.
That's fantastic. Like you're aggressively on it and making it happen. Yeah, that's great. I'm going to just ask, because you guys have opened up registration, what if you can't have the show for I'm not trying to put that out in the universe, but you've opened registration. What happens if you can't have your show? Have you, with registration, and I don't know if you want to answer this or not, but have you been processing payments? Are you're holding registrations and you're waiting to see what happens? If we're allowed, I understand if we're allowed to have a show, we're having a show. That's for sure, right? Yep. That is absolutely for sure. If we're allowed to have a show, we're having a show. But we don't know what's going to happen with this stupid virus. So what happens if you can't have your show in January and March? Yours is in February or March?
The first week of February.
First week of February, yeah.
Well, for me and for Spry, the simple answer is we revert back to what we rolled out in the spring of 2020. So the winners in this case are our exhibitors and our retailers, because we have dramatically expanded the level of marketing support that we provided our exhibitors in the lead up to the shows. So, essentially now an exhibitor or a prospective exhibitor benefits from both the physical opportunity to exhibit at Spry, but now also the virtual opportunity. And we're not taking those virtual opportunities away if the physical show takes place. So we've simply added value and enhanced the exposure that our exhibitors can benefit from by participating in a Spry show. So it's essentially a value added approach, but at the same time, if we're prevented from producing the in-person physical show, we simply roll out the virtual show, which we were going to do anyway as in conjunction with the physical show. But if we're prevented from doing the physical show, we will still have a trade show. It will be a digital show as we rolled out in the spring of this year.
Super. How about you, Mark?
In my case, I was clear. It's indicated on the registration form, and I was very clear with everybody that this registration process is in preparation of a potential show taking place at the beginning of February. But since we're still swimming into the unknown, no invoicing will take place till January 2nd, 2021. Okay, so nobody has to pay until we're basically, by then we should be 100% sure or not that we have a show. So nobody has to pay until then, or will be invoiced until then. And another reason behind that too was the fact that the feedback I got from some companies was that many didn't have any more budgets in 2020 for any show in Canada, okay? And so by allowing them to be invoiced January 2nd, 2021 and pay like net 10 days, or some of them are paying right away with credit cards, it allows them to now use their 2021 budget and establish a budget for a show, so which they couldn't do in 2020. So I didn't want that factor to come into play into the registration process. And of course, it also eliminates the if for some unbelievable reason we can't have the show, I won't have to go through a process of refunding everybody, you know. And I mean, it's so much extra work for everybody, you know. I took the approach of delaying everything. I took special arrangements with the Expo Center, where I will not be invoiced by them till mid-January or so. So to accommodate what I want to do, because what needs to be done, in fact, to accommodate every company to be able to register for the show. And of course, finally, the registration process is also clear that it's in preparation for that show, but it's also an evaluation of the support out there of the return of the show. And it's clear that if that show doesn't happen, at least we'll have a consensus that I'll be able to publish to everybody, or everybody will see it anyway, that, you know what, that here's the support for even the August show, the next option, because we have to keep getting prepared for when it's physically possible to do it. We can't abandon and stop preparing because we don't know what's happening. So it's at the very least, it's a support evaluation for either the February show or even the August show.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. So you're covered. You're both covered either way, whether you can have it or you cannot, which is all we can do right now. There are shows canceling. The gift show is canceled, and that's trade. We know big consumers shows. We know boat shows canceled. We know auto shows canceled. But those are consumer side. It's a completely different ball of wax to trade. It really is. So with our remaining 5 minutes, I really want to know what Robert's silver lining is. What I really do. I just want to understand what your perspective on the future of trade shows in Canada are in our industry. And does that tie into your silver lining?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It does, because I think, you know, we have a vested interest in promoting the opportunity that a trade show presents to the industry. So it's always going to be perceived as being biased, and that's fine. That's our job. Our job is to promote our events. What COVID has done is it has allowed everyone to understand what they're missing out on because the shows have not been able to take place. There is no better way to sell the true benefit and the true opportunity of what a trade show offers than to take it away from everybody, albeit, you know, I'm optimistic in the short term, but there really is no better way to allow everyone to appreciate what they're missing by not allowing them to experience it. So the idea of, I've spoken to retailers that have essentially said, unless I can physically touch the product, it will not be bought for this next season. So I either come and see you in your showroom, or you come and see me in my store, or we figure some other way out. But I'm just giving you fair warning that we're not buying anything for the store unless we have experienced it physically. So what does a trade show do? It provides that physical opportunity, and there is no other way. So far, there is no other way, or at least no as efficient a way of facilitating that opportunity than our trade shows. So the silver lining is everyone is very aware of what they're missing right now. And yes, we're going to have to be very patient, and we're going to have to be very tolerant of the misperceptions that are out there, of the risk of everyone exposing themselves to COVID. in the meantime. But at the same time, as I say, my perspective is that this has been very enlightening. And I think when we're all allowed to get back to our old norms of how we do business, I think we will come out of it very strong.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. People, we're social beings. We get energy off of each other, and I absolutely agree. My internet's getting a little unstable there. What about you, Mark? What is your perspective on the future of trade shows in Canada?
What everybody's experienced with this pandemic situation and the lack of shows, is first of all the delay that all the other options, the delay that in getting the orders and in production planning, and the consequences of that a lot of retailers are experiencing right now are very late deliveries. Okay, because sourcing was delayed. Even at the original source where they get their orders, where a show like ours gives the opportunity to gather, a humongous amount of orders, and even help in the production planning where the direction is going very quickly within 3 or 4 days, where it took a month or more for companies to get that kind of information and feedback and orders. So yeah, delays in everything. So everybody realized now that shows are a must. They will be back. They'll be stronger than ever, I believe. The World Show Association agrees as well. Nothing can replace the advantages that a show gives to everybody in terms of getting the orders quicker, getting the production planning quicker, and getting the sourcing quicker, and getting better deliveries. And if I can add just one thing, just a simple little quote that I read the other day. The most powerful tool that humans have is choice. And a simple choice can change your entire life direction. And it's up to us to choose whether we want to bring back the shows and make it as powerful as it was before and as successful as before. It's a question of choice. Let's make that choice. It's up to us.
I absolutely agree. And I absolutely agree. And I just want to add before we wrap up and say goodbye, we have to work together. We serve the same industry. We serve the same retail base, more or less, depending on category. We do the same things within our industry, within our communities. We have to work together. I really strongly believe that we will be stronger for both our supplier side, our exhibitor side, and our retailer side. I really strongly believe that, and I hope we will continue to work together. Thank you so much, you guys, for contributing to this panel. Really appreciate it. Robert, was there something you wanted to add? You looked like you wanted to add.
No, I thought Marc-André's comments were fantastic. I mean, the trade show provides an element of structure to the industry that I think has been sorely missed this last booking season. That structure was what we perhaps didn't appreciate as much as we should have, all of us, was that the structure was that for a period of 3 or 4 days, everyone's mindset was, I need to go and research, I need to go and book for my store for the following season. And the result of not having the shows was a dramatic reduction in the structure, the discipline in the industry. And what that is going to result in at least in the short term anyway, is, and this is just, this is the reality, I think, of conversations on both sides with vendors and retailers, is that if you have not disciplined yourself to place your booking orders as a retailer, you run the risk of leaving yourself without product, because the vendors, the risk management that the vendors are putting in place right now is they're only producing what has been ordered. There is no cushion. There's no fat in the production. So if you haven't placed a booking order, and the silver lining for the industry is that this is going to train the industry to get back to the structure of bookings. We've gotten very sort of lazy, if you like. That's a negative term, but we've gotten lazy. We've ordered extra product because this person and that person didn't place a booking order, and that's taught them that, hey, I didn't need to place a booking order because sometime during the season when I need a replenishment order, I can pick up the phone and know that I'm going to get that replenishment order. Those days are over. Those days are over. And so if you haven't placed a booking order, which you would likely normally do either at a show or very shortly after a show, if you haven't done that in this last round of season buying, you are going to be SOL.
Yeah.
So the trade show provides that structure for everyone to embrace a time period in the season that says, I need to think about the future and I need to make decisions and I need to look after my business now. And the trade show, for all its its physical elements, is that inherent structure that the industry, both on the vendor side and the retailer side, needs in order to get organized.
Such a good point. And both sides understand that. Both the buyer and the supplier side both understand that now. Perhaps more than ever, they understand that now, right? Great point, Robert. Mark, did you want to add to that, or? Yeah.
Well, it just basically, Robert is on the same page. It just confirms that the chain of the process of booking, production planning, production itself, and shipping has been broken. That chain has been broken and or delayed to the extent where suppliers now are faced with very late deliveries. Many suppliers have, like Robert said, will not buy more than what they're getting in bookings, period. Those days are gone as well, I agree. And the retail and the delay, all the other options that presents delayed options to book, just caused the whole mayhem and the whole thing. So yeah, shows are the only option that can really restructure the industry and reunite the industry and put things back the way they should be. So yeah, it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
And I just to add, I think the other aspect of it is we've learned how resilient the consumer is, and there is a much unexpected continuation of demand for product. And again, I mean, it's so important right now that we remain vigilant to what that demand is, because it's out there.
Yes.
People want to go about their lives. They want to recreate. They want to live their lives as normal as possible. And that includes going out shopping and spending their hard-earned money and enjoying life. And we need to be ready. We collectively as an industry, we need to be ready to supply that demand. So it's out there. There's no question.
Absolutely. And we will get to the other side of this, and we will be better and stronger on the other side of it. We just have to get through a little bit more pain. But I absolutely agree. Trade shows are necessary, and they're probably going to be more appreciated now than ever before, and it will be better for our industry. I really, really believe that. And that is your silver lining, Robert. I really get it. I love
One last thing on my part is please, Michelle, you're part of this association. Please, somebody do something about representing the different needs that our industry and our type of shows require. Okay, with the government.
Yes.
Need be if you have to have an associated segment of another association associating with you guys to address this issue, because we're really left out there we're in the same basket of other venues that do not belong. I mean, we have our shows work a lot by appointments. We have information as to all the participants. We don't meet we're not a general public thing, and something has to happen to represent that need.
Yes, it has been I can speak on the CAM side. I am not on the task force. I sit on the board of directors. So I work with people on the task force and I put through stuff for the task force, but it has been a long slog. And it's not just federal, because it's
I know.
provincial, and every single province is different, and they all have different, Alberta is opening up. Like, I mean, their case numbers are going up, but they're opening up their
Rightly so.
venues. What's that, Robert?
And rightly so.
And rightly so, absolutely. Yeah. So we have a lot of work to do, and we will continue to do that. And I can send you guys some templates of letters that we've sent out if you want to just add your name to those lists, because we are tourism and we're not tourism, but we are under that umbrella, and that's a big problem for us. So we have to show the government that on a trade show, we can do it safely and keep the numbers down. To Robert's point, way more than Walmart, way more than a shopping mall. We can control it.
Yep.
So thank you guys.
Just a quick note. I've communicated with our provincial government via my MP. Okay, so that was my approach with the provincial government. Never got a response, of course, but I have communicated on various occasions to the government and to Santé Quebec, Health Quebec, via my MP, local MP, who promised me she would direct my communications to the office of the Prime Minister. So maybe that's a thing that every province should probably do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've taken it everywhere we can,
I know.
provincially and federally. But everybody's going to the government right now. Every industry, every sector, every charity, everybody is, anyways, we will get past this. We will.
Yep.
We have to be positive. We have to work together. We have to keep communicating amongst ourselves and serving our communities as they need us to serve them. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Oh, pleasure. I'm so glad you were available. And Mark as well. So stay safe, you guys, and we will be in touch with you soon, okay?
Thank you very much as well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.